and welcome to another vlog. Today is Saturday the 14th of November and I'm not sure if you can tell from how not sunny this intro is, but it is a very grey November day. It's basically now at that turning point between autumn and winter. The leaves are pretty much all gone off of the trees and that seemed to just come from like nowhere. I felt like the leaves were just slowly turning and they were really bright and wonderful, but there were still quite a lot of leaves on the trees, and then as if by magic suddenly they all just like dropped, and now it feels like it's getting very wintry. And I don't mind winter, especially when it's like bright blue crisp winter days, but today is just one of those days that feels a little bit nothingy because it's not sunny, it's not rainy, it's kind of just grey and it's leaving me feeling a little bit lacking in energy. So I'm going to make the most of it, to be honest, and just have a really chilled out Saturday, mostly focused on reading and being cozy. And my main focus for reading today is going to be Vicious by Victoria Schwab. If you saw the video that went up on Friday on my channel, I did a try a chapter tag where I read the first chapter of 4 books. Vicious was one of them and this was the one that I decided to pick up next. And so today I'm going to see how far I can actually get through this book, because tomorrow is actually the start of the Gilmore Girls readathon. So I'm going to be filming just a 1 day in the life vlog today, which is I think a little bit of a nice change because usually I film longer vlogs, and then tomorrow I'm going to be jumping straight into a new vlog which is going to be all about the Gilmore Girls readathon. So from what I read in the very first chapter in the try chapter tag, it seemed like a very intriguing and quite dramatic start to a book, so I feel like it shouldn't be that difficult to get through most of this book. And like I said, it's pretty rubbish weather, so I'm not really planning to do much else other than reading today. So without further ado, I think the first step to an ultimate cozy day is a cup of tea. So I'm gonna go make a lovely warming hot drink. I might even treat myself to one of my like more fancy flavorful autumn teas and then get settled with this book and see how far I get. And I'll obviously keep you updated with all of my thoughts as we go.
When we wake, hear the birds and see the sun. Side by side our fears are done. Oh, the good times just begun. We know what we have, let's hold on tight. Found what we're looking for in life. Call us crazy, but things are finally right. With you and I, the future is bright. Oh, you and I, we got it. Oh, we don't need no more. Oh, even in the hard times, you and I can weather any storm. Before I sleep, hear the crickets, see the moon. Side by side and through. No limit to what we can do. Oh, we know what we have, let's hold on tight.
It is so cold today. I honestly cannot cope. It's like freezing. I think that the window in our room was open for a little bit earlier and oh my god, was that a big mistake, because that has made this room so cold, and I'm genuinely like hugging this mug of tea and this hot water bottle with every inch of my life just to try and warm up. But on a more positive note, I have made some progress with reading Vicious. I'm now on page 66. And this has definitely been a really good choice because it's such an intriguing book. It's a book which is told in a few different timelines, which I always find super interesting. So chapter 1 starts with the title, Last Night, and then other chapters start with 10 years ago, 2 days ago, 1 week ago, etc, etc. And so we're piecing together all kinds of information that kind of is helping to build up this bigger picture, and it's a book which is giving us a lot of information but also generating a lot of mystery. And so I'll start with the chapters that that are called 10 years ago, because I feel like that is where the bulk of the information and like the actual cohesive story is coming from at the moment, and all of these bits that are more recent, like 2 days ago or even last night, are kind of a lot more elusive, and I feel like that mystery is going to get solved as the book goes on. So in the chapters that say 10 years ago, we have our main character Victor, who is a university student, and also his roommate Eli, and they essentially get involved in a experiment which is all about trying to find EOs, which stands for extraordinaries. And so those are kind of like superhero type people who have these extraordinary abilities, and they kind of figure out that in order to become an EO, they're kind of debating whether or not it's something that you're born with or something that you can develop, but they think that one way that you can develop it is through near-death experiences, and so they're involved in these really dangerous kind of experiments in order to try and like test that hypothesis essentially. And so that's kind of where we're at right now, but from what we understand in the chapters that are obviously set in the future to this timeline, there seems to have been some kind of rift between Victor and Eli, and I think it's to do with their experiments and potentially the fact that they were successful in becoming EOs. So it's really intriguing, there's a lot of information and it's quite fast moving. Now later on this evening I'm teaching an online yoga workshop, which I'm quite excited about, but I do have a couple of hours until that starts, so I'm going to spend the rest of my afternoon until that point finishing off. I don't think I'll be finishing off, just reading as much of this book as possible essentially until that class begins. But honestly, I cannot believe how dark it's gotten already. It is currently just after 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and it is so dark outside. I feel like it doesn't even really show up here, but it's just such a dark day.
Found what we're looking for in life. Call us crazy, but things are finally right. With you and I, the future is bright. Oh, you and I, we got it. Oh, we don't need no more.
So I just finished up with that yoga workshop, which was really exciting because that's actually the first ever workshop I've done. I usually just teach like maximum 60-minute classes, and so that was a 90-minute workshop, so it was a lot more themed around a specific idea, and it was really, really exciting but also kind of scary just because it's the first time I've done something like that. It was kind of disappointing because it was organised like quite a few weeks ago, or even months ago, and it was meant to be in studio, and like everything else it's moved online, but actually it was really nice. And as you saw earlier, I've been having a little bit of a low energy day, but I actually feel so much better now that I've taught a class, and I feel like revitalized, which is good because I actually want to try and finish this book today. We love setting ourselves a challenge over here. So I'm currently on page 127, and this book has just over 300 pages, so I'm like about halfway. Well, I'm definitely under halfway, but I'm like almost halfway, and I'm really excited to see what happens with this one, but I really don't want to like leave this book, and obviously like I mentioned, the Gilmore Girls readathon is starting tomorrow, so I kind of wanted to finish this one today. So what is happening so far, like I mentioned, we have these two characters, Victor and Eli, who are involved in trying to discover how people become extraordinaries, and through their process of trying to discover it, they actually do that experiment on themselves, but that immediately wreaks a lot of havoc on everything, because essentially, although you can kind of have this control over bringing yourself back from a near-death experience, you have no idea on what the impact is going to be in terms of what your extraordinary ability is. And for Victor in particular, his ability has a major impact on everything around him, which is really interesting and causes a lot of tension. But what's really interesting is the discussion that they've both had about like essentially what the effect is from coming back from the dead. And so Victor is adamant that they've just come back from the dead, and although they've got these abilities, like nothing really weird has happened to them, whereas Eli is just basically saying that they're kind of lacking in something, and basically saying that like once you come back from the dead, it kind of takes away this kind of like essential part of you as a person, which I feel like is really similar to the theme that is explored in Pet Sematary by Stephen King, because he of course explores this idea of bringing people back from the dead when they're completely dead through going to this particular cemetery. But when these people come back, although they may look the same on the outside, there is a core part of their humanity missing from them, which has kind of been lost in, I guess it's kind of like a Faustian thing, where when you kind of do something that goes against the laws of humanity, you kind of lose a bit of what makes you human, which is obviously a really, really interesting concept. And it's also really cool that this is one that's explored through like past and present timelines, because we're seeing the tension that has obviously been created in Victor and Eli's relationship as it was created, but then we're also seeing how that has manifested itself in like long-term hatred and just like determination for revenge. So it's a really, really intense book, but I'm really enjoying it. So it's currently just after 8 p.m. I'm going to grab some dinner, kind of late dinner, but I didn't want to eat before my workshop, and then do some reading, and I'll let you know how far I get before I inevitably fall asleep.
Even in the hard times, you and I can weather any storm.
So just had dinner, and I'm not gonna lie, I made pesto pasta for I think the 6th time in the last 7 days. I've had fajitas one night this week, and then every other day has been pesto pasta, and honestly I'm not even sorry about it. If you are based in the UK, Tesco have a pesto from Wicked Kitchen, which is a black olive pesto, and it is literally the best thing I think I've ever tasted in my whole life. It's so delicious. So I've basically had that every single night for dinner. Basically mix the pasta with some chickpeas and some spinach and the pesto, and it is literally like the best thing ever, sprinkled with a very, very, very generous dosage of nutritional yeast. And honestly, I'm obsessed. Kind of get into these habits where I just eat the same thing every day, but when it tastes as good as pesto pasta does, I can't even complain about it because it's just so good. So I've had my dinner, got a quick shower, and I'm now getting ready for some moonlight reading, by which I mean I'm going to be reading with my new beautiful moon lamp. Ooh. It just feels so powerful with this. Also looks a bit ghosty. But I got this new lamp and it is amazing. It is basically a 3D printed moon, and it looks incredible. Like, I was hoping it was going to look like what the pictures did, but you can never quite tell. But it looks amazing, and you can either have it as like a white light, or if you want something a bit less harsh, then you can also change it to be orange, which is quite cool. So I love this, and I'm going to read by the moonlight and try and go through as much of Vicious as I can. Now it's currently past 9 p.m, and although all of my yoga classes are now online, except for the ones that are completely cancelled because their studios are not doing online classes, so I don't have quite as much to do on the weekends as I did before lockdown, but I am still teaching a couple of online yoga classes tomorrow morning, so I don't want to be up too late. So I'm thinking that probably I'm not going to finish this book tonight. That ambition has very quickly died. However, I'm going to make a cup of tea, refill my hot water bottle, and get set up in bed to read as much as I can before I need to go to sleep. And then, although the Gilmore Girls readathon is starting tomorrow, I've gotten through like half of this book so far in just a day, so I don't think this book is going to take me very long to finish. So I feel like I'll just spend tomorrow morning, outside of teaching yoga, focusing on finishing this book, and then in the afternoon tomorrow I'll start the Gilmore Girls readathon. So without further ado, let's grab a cup of tea, maybe a snack, and then I'll do as much reading as I can before bed. Well, it is now Sunday morning and I am still reading Vicious by V.E. Schwab. I'm definitely enjoying it. I've still got about 100 pages left to go because I just reached page 238. But this is really, really intriguing. Mostly because it's playing on a lot of the themes that I really enjoy in other books that I've read. So yesterday I obviously mentioned Pet Sematary by Stephen King, and then I also feel like it's got a lot of similar themes to Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, because this is a book which definitely explores the theme of essentially like playing God, whether people should be able to do that or whether just because someone has an ability to do something that they should actually do it, and then like the moral responsibility that comes with having taken on that godlike role. And I think there's a really interesting divide between the two main characters, Victor and Eli, in the way that they view the experience of being an extraordinary, and there are a lot of other sort of specifics related to each individual extraordinary. And I think what's really interesting is that Eli essentially has this weird godlike complex, which I think is so interesting, and he kind of views it as his responsibility to manage every other EO because he views them all as being a threat. But he has this very strange self-perception that means he doesn't view himself as a threat and kind of exempts himself from the moral like judgment that he places on all of the other EOs, and I think that's really, really interesting. And then another similarity I've noticed to this book, which isn't from a book but from a TV show, is Heroes, which was years and years ago now on TV, and it's basically about all of these people who suddenly started developing extraordinary abilities, and those were all really, really specific. So like one guy could fly, there was another guy who could transport through time, there was a girl who could like heal herself from any kind of injury, and there was loads and loads and loads of other types of like hero abilities that they had, and they all had to kind of come to terms with and understand these abilities. But then there was a villain in the series called Silas who was basically trying to capture and kill all of these heroes in order to take all of the power for himself. And that's definitely something that I think like the word has gone from me completely. Like, I feel like it definitely connects with Eli, because although he kind of sees himself as doing something good by trying to protect the world from all of the other EOs, there's also kind of an underlying potential that he maybe wants to get rid of all of the other EOs so that he is the only extraordinary out there, because he kind of wants that like superiority complex to be like massaged, and he just kind of wants that like ego boost essentially. So I'm really enjoying it. I'm gonna go make a morning chai latte and then carry on reading until I teach yoga. I did it. I managed to finish Vicious before I have to go and teach my first yoga class. I'm literally like ready to go right now, but I thought I'd give you a quick little update on my thoughts on this book. I'm going to rate this one 4 stars because it was really, really, really good. I absolutely loved the discussion of all of the themes about morality, immortality, God complexes, morality complexes, and all of that kind of stuff, and also the theme of heroes and villains and how you can so easily view yourself as the hero, but to other people you're definitely the villain, and vice versa. And it's just so interesting to see like how that played out in this book. The reason I'm rating it 4 stars instead of 5 is because it's one of those books where I'm not really sure that it needed to be a duology. I feel like it was intentionally left open for no reason other than to just continue a series, but I don't necessarily think that that was necessary. I think they could have kind of like concluded everything and brought it into a nice and neat conclusion in this book, and maybe made it slightly longer but kind of finished off the story there. I don't think it needed to be carried over into a second book, just my opinion, but I know a lot of people end up reading this one but not the other one. I am definitely going to be reading Vengeful, the second book, but I do feel like it was potentially just there for like a marketing and money thing rather than actually needing a second book, if that makes sense. But either way, I'm really glad that I picked this one to read as my very first like try a chapter book pick, because it was such a good read, and obviously I finished it in basically one day, so I absolutely loved it, and I'd highly recommend it for anyone who has enjoyed either Frankenstein or Pet Sematary, or in general likes the theme of like paranormal, dark academia-y style books, because this definitely fits into all of those categories, and I absolutely loved it. So with that being said, it is now Sunday, which is of course the start of the Gilmore Girls readathon, so I'm going to finish up this reading vlog here, and I hope you enjoyed this short but sweet, Vicious themed reading vlog. I'd love to know if you've read this book and what you thought of it, and if not, I definitely recommend it. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.